On this episode of The Social Wildlife, I have David. Hey, David.
Thank you. Hi.
Hey. So I've known David, what would it be? 4 years?
3, 4, 5?
3 or 4, 5 years, somewhere in there. We've been good friends since we met. Met you when you had alt marketing.
Yep.
On Waterman Place.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot's happened since then.
I know, so much. Yeah, that's crazy how you look back to that very first encounter, right? Offices 2 doors apart.
Yeah.
So much water under the bridge since then.
I know, yeah, heaps, yeah. The topic of today's episode is about navigating the exit of toxic or bad relationships. So we're going to talk about basically how to identify it and then how to get out and how to do that efficiently without wasting time, which I know both you and I have had experience with this. But first, before that happens, we'll get into some initial questions. So what do you do for work?
So I am a business coach during the day, and then by night I moonlight as a podcaster.
Right, yeah.
So that's been something I've been doing a year.
Cool.
Up to about 100 episodes almost.
Right, yeah.
Give or take.
Gee, humming. You got it humming.
And loving it, loving that process.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
I've been on 1 episode with you.
Yep.
Shortly to be on 2.
Yeah, the evolved version.
Yes.
The produced version. So.
Yeah, I love it. Aren't they great? Podcasts are just such a good way to, like, it's almost keeping a diary of the evolution of whatever it is. You get to see it. Like, if I could go back and do my first episode again, I just so would.
Yeah.
But you can't.
Yeah.
Like, but I suppose it's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it.
It is an interesting medium and one that I both enjoy consuming but more producing. I really enjoy the conversations that come out of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, those different parts of a episode and what makes a good one, what makes a okay one, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know until you listen to it back and you're like, wow, that was actually awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can get into a bit of a vortex when you're in it sometimes, not really knowing what's going on.
Yep.
So engaged in the conversation. Got to say, it's quite another thing being on someone else's podcast.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
a little nerve-wracking, actually.
I feel like it's always nerve-wracking at the start regardless, just because you're kind of getting into the groove. I feel it takes like 5 minutes or so to get into the groove.
Yeah. I feel like it's similar to when I had the marketing agency and producing videos. A lot of it was not so much about the technical part of the video, but about making the person or the subject feel comfortable.
Yes, true.
And that's what really made the difference between a good finished product and, one where they're a bit awkward and a bit uncomfortable. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm often not the nervous one in situations. Yeah, but I find in these kind of situations, I definitely do get nervous. I'm normally able to put other people at ease, but I know definitely that pressure's on at the start. And I've had guests where I've looked at them and gone, "Oh, you're visibly nervous."
Yeah,
But I'm like, how do I do anything? And it normally comes right, like quite quickly.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I know that feeling. I know what you're talking about. Okay, cool. So, what is a common myth about your job?
I guess with the coaching, a common thing or a sentiment, I suppose, would be that business coaches are coaches because they're not either able to run a business themselves or they're taking an easier option out. I've heard that a few times.
Yep.
I guess it ties into the credibility factor. But, it's sort of my edge or my angle is that I have been there, done that.
That's right.
And that I'm currently building something. So
Yeah. I guess the coaching space is interesting, isn't it? Because anyone can jump into it. But you would hope that whatever you're being coached in, that person has some experience. And I guess that's the difference between a coach and a mentor. Is that a mentor generally has seriously been there and done that.
Totally.
But a coach may not have. And it's up to you as a client to investigate that person has been there and done that, whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of words that are interchangeably used, like coaching, consultant, mentor, advisor.
Yeah, but they are different roles effectively.
I think so.
Some of them, yeah. Because I know I remember when I was looking into coaching, I was seeing what is my role as a coach? And it's like your role as a mentor and your role as a coach are quite different. A mentor really does give advice based on experience, whereas a coach, generally your role is to get the client to answer their own questions, which is tough when you want to give advice,
Yeah, and I guess it depends on the context, doesn't it?
Yeah, true.
Especially with relationships. I can imagine that would be even more relevant,
Yes, Well,
sorry, not relevant,
but even with business, like it is, it really is. Like your advice might make or break their business, but at the same time, it might not be what they want to do, and you have to going hands off. I'd have clients with relationship coaching where I'm like, oh, I can see your way through this 100%, but for me to tell them to do it would be really taking over. And I guess that's why coaching is so tough, because it's unregulated. You have to decide, where am I going to draw that line? No one's going to draw it for you.
Yeah, I think you can counteract that with the quality of your questions. I think that
yes, true.
You can guide a conversation based on specific questioning. So if you maybe find yourself in a position where someone's doing something that perhaps isn't serving them, then you can counteract that with questions that maybe get them to think in a different way. And
true. Yep. Yeah, that questioning is so important, eh?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does your morning routine look like?
I don't have a set routine at the moment. I've dabbled with a few different versions. I've tried the 5 a.m. club. I've tried, the set get up time. I've tried like the gym in the morning, tried the sauna in the morning. At the moment, what I'm doing is prioritizing sleep.
Cool. Yep.
So that's one of my main things. So using some technology, so using the Oura Ring, I check that in the morning, and then if I'm up at 5 a.m. and feel great, then sometimes that is an indication that, I am well rested and that the sleep was good. But then sometimes I can get disorientated, right? Like I wake up, feel good, but then look at the sleep score. It's like, whoa, that's a low score. Yeah, right. This could lead to a crash later. Yeah. So therefore, I'll try and get another hour or two.
Right. And do you feel like it's effective and it helps?
I think so. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it'd be an overthinker's worst nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, like practically, a lot of people invest in sleep tech.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, the sort of joke, I guess, is like people are like, well, fuck, you've either had a good sleep or you haven't, right? You don't need tech to tell you that.
No, that's right. Yeah.
But that's why I use that example as a practical way to use it.
Yeah, I find like with me, if I get up when I wake up, I'm fine, but I will crash earlier. Right. But I feel like that's the start of my body resetting, as in earlier in the day is when I crash. Like I might really feel tired at 3 p.m. or something like that if I get up when I wake up. But my morning is so much more productive and I feel so much more rested, like throughout the first half of my day at least. If I go back to sleep after I wake up for the first time, that's when I do damage to my morning, if you know what I mean. Like,
right, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only way I monitor it at the moment, but I'd definitely be keen to look into getting one of those rings.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just figured that if I can improve my sleep quality even a little bit, then it's worth the cost of the device. But to answer your question, my morning routine always starts with a coffee. Yeah. Critical. Black. Yeah. Low grade, low to medium grade instant coffee. Yeah. It's something I'm not proud of, but it is what it is. It's easy, it's convenient. Yeah. And so that's the one thing that is a constant. Yep. And often I've just gotten into early morning coaching sessions or networking events in the morning. So often that's come at the cost of fitness in the morning, which it's fuck, I'm just trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, of course. Project in progress.
Totally.
Morning routine in progress.
And then, like being in a relationship as well, that's another factor. Yep. Just to be honest. Yep. Like it's not a bad thing. It's just that it is a thing. Yeah. It's a variable, right?
It definitely is. And it adds its whole new set of variables, because you're effectively adapting to someone else and their morning routine. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so what's your favourite childhood memory?
Growing up on the West Coast was just an overall great experience.
Yeah,
from,
I bet it was.
Years like, 0 to 12 when I was over there. Yep. It was such a good, like, wholesome way to grow up with the native bush, on my doorstep at the property. Yep. Childhood friends that you go biking or play tennis or eeling or whatever, right? Yeah. So good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I wish I'd had that upbringing, honestly. I love the coast.
It's pretty awesome, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I feel lucky looking back on it now. I think it's probably something that a lot of people like yourself would appreciate and recognize as a good way to get started.
100%. We really are. We really did grow up in paradise, eh? We really did.
Yeah, totally. I think the other thing is growing up in a slightly smaller town. Quite like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very different dynamics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so what's something that people misunderstand about you most?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Misunderstand about me most. I guess the way I, put out content online and do the podcast and the social media stuff, like I guess it's probably not representative of day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I guess that's the reality of a lot of people that are, producing on social media, is that it is the highlight reel.
Absolutely.
I try to offset that as much as I can. I do try to put that perspective as well. But I guess just the common misconception that, I've got everything figured out, or that, just that disconnect from reality would be the thing.
Yeah, we really don't post the times we're really battling, eh?
No. And I find that people that do, there are a certain cohort of people that do that, and it's not that sexy.
No, and I think too, even if they are posting when they're really battling, they're probably not posting the times they're battling and not able to leverage. You know what I mean? Because there's those times. You're like, okay, I'm battling now, so here's a video of me crying, but where's the video of you when you shit yourself at 3 a.m? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, it happened, but it didn't get put on Instagram.
No, that's definitely not going on Instagram.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's not that I shit myself, and I definitely did not at 3 a.m. Hypothetically. Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things, like, yeah, here's something I'm sad, but I'm going to look for attention online from this bad thing that's happened.
Yes.
Or there's this bad thing that's happened and I'm not going to tell anyone about it either.
Yeah, interesting balance though, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think, being real on there is tough, but something to strive for. As real as you can.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I get out of the podcasting journey, is that you can be real but also provide context. So it's not just a poor me or a sympathy thing. It's like, hey, look, this is something that I'm struggling with at the moment. I'm trying to work around it. This is the steps I'm doing to combat it. But
for sure. And the people who listen are willing to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Generally, they're like, I want to hear the whole story here. And you're like, here's my opportunity. I have your attention.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. It's insane how the podcasting content can be consumed by the least expected people.
Oh, I know.
And they get this, like, what do you call it? Like direct insight into your mind. And it's quite freaky and creepy. And
absolutely.
And that's the sort of cost of putting out content, isn't it?
Yeah.
At scale.
And you just don't know who's absorbing it.
No, that's what I mean.
I know. No, absolutely. Cool. So what are your top 3 best traits?
Top 3 best traits?
Yeah.
Traits, like habits that I do.
Traits as in aspects of your personality.
I guess my ability to relate to people of different backgrounds and walks. That's probably my number one.
Fair enough.
Did a personality profiling thing recently, and that was the number one, the relatability.
Sweet.
And I feel that I'm also good at getting someone pumped up about something.
Cool.
Like working
motivating.
through. Yeah, I guess like motivating, or like finding out what the real problem is. So it really ties in well to the decision to get into coaching.
Absolutely. It's necessary, both of them.
Yeah. And I guess number 3 is just I'm not really too phased, or I don't really care what people think, so I'm not afraid to put out things that are maybe vulnerable, or put myself out there and create these challenges and put content out there. So
cool.
Yeah.
Good traits. Okay, so what is the biggest challenge that you're facing in your work or life right now, and how are you tackling it?
Probably parenting. That would be the biggest one.
Yeah.
Right this second. Just with the co-parenting arrangement and just that dynamic. It's really quite challenging.
Yeah, fair enough.
Life's this thing that there's so many different facets. Let's say there's 3, 4, 5 different main cores to it.
Yep.
That would be the one that I'm definitely struggling with the most at the moment.
Yep. No, fair enough.
And I think everything has a cost, right? Like the cost of focusing on business is that maybe fitness is getting deprioritized.
It's always a trade-off.
Totally.
I feel like it's like when you pick a video game character, and you go through and you'll trade strength for speed and all these kind of things, or even in a racing car, one's got better acceleration, one's got more top speed and things. You take away from one and you put out others.
Yeah.
And that balance is so important to overall well-being, you know.
I think the biggest shift I've made recently, though, is being able to compartmentalize those areas that aren't doing so well, and just being like, look, that's not ideal, but I mean, I'm doing the best I can for one thing, and then I'm also doing better in these areas. So it's like that saying, it's not good or bad, it just is.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. That's really helped me a lot.
Absolutely. I think that's it's very relevant. Cool. So what are the 3 most important things you would look for in a partner in order?
In order.
Yeah.
Wow. Number 1, I think compatibility from a love language perspective.
Yeah.
I think that would be the number 1.
You don't want them too drastic, do you?
How do you mean?
Like, too drastically different.
No.
I like the difference shouldn't be too heavy, because you're just not going to want to do the same things or see things the same way. Yeah.
It's hard to narrow that down though, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I guess if each person is adaptable enough or understanding enough and the communication's high enough, then you can communicate what you need and also work out what they need. That's going to be the main thing. But again, if gifts really mean a lot to you and they don't mean a lot to them, and physical touch doesn't mean anything to the other person, you're not going to be. You're not going to. Compatibility is so important.
I think another one on the list, I don't know if this is 2 or 3, but similar stages. So someone that's at either a similar like psychological stage to you or a life stage.
Yep.
I think without that, it's probably going to be constant friction or constant mismatch. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Yep.
And number 3. Whoa, Josh, this is really getting me thinking here.
Yeah.
I think attraction's pretty important.
Oh, we'll put attraction there as a. I'd love to hear you.
I'm gonna expand a little bit on this one. I'm gonna classify it in 2 ways. One would be physical attractiveness, which is the easiest, but I think more importantly is attracted to the character, attracted to the energy, attracted to the whole person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Could be number 1 actually.
Well, technically it should be, because without it, there is no relationship.
Absolutely.
The other ones, you can still have one.
Yes.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not attracted to someone, they're a friend. You're really not going to want to do anything.
No.
You're not going to want to spend the rest of your life with that person or sleep with them. So
Yeah. So that was a reverse grid response.
Yeah. No, it's great though. It's good. Yeah. No, that's perfect. Okay, and what are your top 3 red flags when dating?
Top 3 red flags. Probably, it's going to sound a bit woo-woo, but like energy.
Yep.
If someone's not compatible, I think I can tell really quickly if it's a mismatch.
Right.
If for whatever reason I can just feel it, you know?
Yeah.
Gut feel, energy, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
That sort of undefinable characteristic, that dynamic, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you can get that with either like romantic relationships or friendships or business, right?
Yeah.
You know, some people are just like, fuck, this is just not feeling.
Yeah. That would be that would be the big thing that your gut instinct's telling you this isn't right.
Yeah. And I think we've evolved that way to determine that. So I think the more you can trust it, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's really important.
Going to come up with another 2.
2 more. Even if they're things that you've identified in the past that maybe you hadn't seen at the time, looking back, you're like, I wouldn't even consider someone who does that now.
Yeah, I might borrow that other answer from the previous question about stages. I think that would be really important, especially at the beginning. Yeah. Is if someone is at a different stage, then you're probably wasting time. You're probably elongating the process. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then another one would just be
like an example for me would be how they treat the waiter.
That's a nice, concise way. Yeah.
If you're at a bar,
yeah,
and they treat the waiter like shit,
yeah,
I would look at them and just be like
instantly,
yeah. And I might not even say anything to them, but they're getting judged.
Yes.
Heavily.
Hardcore.
On how bad, how they treat people effectively.
Yeah.
How they speak to their mother.
Yes.
For example, these things would be red flags to me.
Massively.
Or if they just start talking about their ex
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah. I think comfort in themselves, that would be another one.
Yeah.
So if someone's at peace with who they are,
that's a good thing.
I think that really shines through.
I need a red flag.
A red flag.
Yeah.
Oh, a negative.
A negative. So something that because we've got, we did the important things you look for in a partner.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to go a bit random here. So two additional things.
Yep.
Smell and sound. So the way someone smells and the way they sound. Voice.
Yeah. You can't have them sound like Fran Drescher.
Well, I don't know, whatever you're into, right? I think those two things are a bit random, but I think they matter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
And I think there's some evolutionary thing around that smell.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know if you've read much about that, but
like pheromones.
Yeah.
You
animals rely on it. Right?
Well, you can. There's definitely. I know that your health is 100% reflected in how you smell. You can smell when someone is not healthy.
Yeah.
Whether you're behind them at the post office, or it's a partner who's I've smelt myself when I've been in the grips of drug addiction and things like that, or smelt someone who was a meth addict,
right?
And who has been heavily addicted to meth and probably hasn't slept in a week. And I'm like, wow, you can smell it, and it's not a good smell. So you're just kind of like, okay. But then someone who's healthy and has really good functioning hormones and everything like that, a woman's going to put off a really good natural scent. And
good / neutral, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
I'm glad you validated that. I was concerned that
that's very real.
I'd gone a bit far out there.
No, it's very real. It's good. Cool. Okay, so the topic today is getting out of bad relationships. So first question for you, Dave. We'll both unpack these questions, but I'll direct them to you. How would you define a bad relationship, and what are some key signs that a relationship is unhealthy?
I think one that comes to mind is if you're justifying it, if you're explaining to someone that you're in a relationship and that there's really good bits, but I think that's a really immediate sign.
Absolutely.
I think the same goes for any type of dynamic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I think you'll feel it. Something's not right. I mean, a relationship, the main thing for me is that which way are you is it taking energy from you, or is it really adding to your life? You should be really looking forward to getting home to see that person. And they really should be building you up and helping you become a better version of yourself. And that isn't happening through control and manipulation. That's happening through what do you want to do. It's almost like a coaching relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I'm here for you. These are my boundaries, but I'm here for you and for whatever you want to do, I don't think you should do that. I think that's shit. I think that's it and this and that. Because I think that can be misunderstood by people as well. They'll be like, I'm trying to help, and you're like, you're actually not. Yeah,
there's a few key things, isn't there? Like, communication is probably the biggest cliche word that gets thrown around when it comes to relationships, but I mean, in my mind, it is the underlying foundation, bedrock that it's got to exist.
If you didn't have it, there is no relationship.
Yeah,
your relationship is directly determined by how well you communicate effectively. If you don't communicate, you might as well not even know each other. Like you can't. Like imagine that. I mean, if you had no sight, no hearing, no touch, you wouldn't even know the person was there. We communicate every day with our body language, everything. And and if a real good analogy for it is you look at how much people misinterpret text messages, unless you include an emoji. But even then, they can interpret them as passive aggressive. You know what I mean? So like without how well we communicate determines how happy we are and safe we are in relationships. And that's and figuring out the new technology as it arrives, right? Like we've seen so much change in the last, say, 10, 15 years. We didn't used to have to worry about emojis. No. Or instant messages or voice messages or God knows what else. Lol at the end of it.
Yeah. Like you didn't used to have that. You had a landline.
Yeah, that's right. I know.
And you had to call the girls' like parents and like hope the dad didn't answer the phone.
Yeah. And then Sarah phones for you. And her mum sounds visibly pissed, like actually pissed off. Eh? And she picks up, she's like, I've got it.
Times have changed a lot.
I know. Yeah, I know. I kind of miss those days. I do. It was simple. But
simpler times.
The thought of being able to just message your... It's such a luxury to be able to send a Facebook message or an Instagram message to someone and have them read it immediately, and they could be on the other side of the world.
It's bonkers, right?
I know, it's never possible.
Video chat always gets me when I've got a few friends in North America, and just being able to see the environment and talk to them in real time.
I know.
In high definition. Like it's nuts, right?
Insane. Eh?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
And
we're very lucky to have been born at a time where that wasn't possible. And then now it's completely possible. We know the difference, whereas people being born now will never know a time without it.
That's right. Yeah. And with that comes different challenges, like it does create those unknowns. And I think, there's not a lot of, I guess that's the thing to be grateful for internet and the amount of content out there. There are people with communication content. There's people bringing communication to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So just getting back to the bad relationship thing. So we did define it. Did we define what a bad relationship was?
Not really. We dodged around it. I think we avoided that one.
We're going to have to resist these tangents because we're both prone to tangents.
We are.
So how would you define a bad relationship, and what are some key signs that the relationship is unhealthy?
That's right.
Yeah, effectively, well, for me, it would just be that you're in that bad territory. It's negative. It feels more negative than it is positive.
Yeah. I think you could also argue that a good relationship is actually bad. Meaning if you're in a relationship that it's okay. It's not bad. Like we're not.
Yeah, that's right. That's not good enough.
We're not hurting each other, but it's also not great.
Yeah, at that point, you'd start to look at yourself as potentially being codependent, because I think you should be leaving a situation like that if it's not fulfilling. A relationship should be more than good.
Totally.
It should be fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's going to settle into a period where it becomes normal and real life. But at the same time, that's fantastic, and we'll both want that at that point, that you are able to relax, but it's still adding so much value to your life, and you can't picture yourself with anyone else.
Yeah.
That's how it should feel, I think.
100%.
If you don't feel like that, it's breaching on bad.
Yeah. There's almost no such thing as good, right?
No,
there's either bad or there's great.
It's either great or it's not good.
100%.
Yeah,
I'm so passionate about this. It's just so important, and I think this is the biggest thing I could say to anyone, especially younger people, right? It's just, if there's badness and you can't resolve it, just get out or go see you. Well, get some help. Get some help, right?
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I think ultimately you always have the option to be on your own, and I think most people are afraid of that middle ground.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I need someone there, and generally this is where cheating happens, because they don't leave their relationship until they've got someone else who gives them enough of a distraction to be able to get away from whatever they're facing, whatever they hate in their current situation, Are there any common patterns or behaviours that you've observed in bad relationships?
I think I've tended to normalise either the good or the bad. I think I've justified it and I've made it, I haven't had that point of reference. I hadn't historically had a good relationship, and so I've just assumed that this is what it's like. This is what a relationship's about. There are going to be challenges, and I guess when you're younger, you don't necessarily know because you don't have those different points of reference.
No, that's right.
But yeah,
that leads perfectly into the next question. How do we differentiate between normal relationship challenges and more serious toxic symptoms?
I think having conversations with others, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, you're going to need it, especially like you say when you're young. It's about perspective, and often we don't have the perspective we need to know. A lot of the questions that I get from people are things that when I read them, I'm like, in my mind, they're common sense. Pull back, set a healthy boundary, give this person the same amount of energy they're giving you, these kind of things. But if you'd asked me the same question 10 years ago, I couldn't have given you a response like that.
Totally.
I just couldn't have done it. And I would have said, oh, they need to this and they need to that. And it's like, no, actually, they don't need to do anything. They're doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And your job is to do what you can do. And often that's it. It's about identifying what you can and can't control, and then saying, okay, I can control this, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And people don't feel like they have that option. They don't feel like that's there. And often it takes someone like myself to say to them, hey, look, it's this simple, and they go, fuck, that is so simple. I can't believe I didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
And I often, what it comes down to, and recently there's been a couple of people that have asked me questions, and I've asked them questions themselves. So one in particular, she was struggling with some people at work that were giving her grief, and one was attracted to her obviously, but just keep hounding and things like that. And I said to her, well, how do you feel about him? Oh, I feel about this, 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 and this. I said, oh, okay, well, how would you, if you explained it to me in a neutral way, how do you feel? She's like, okay, like this. I'm like, okay, cool. And what do you think, you could, I said a couple of other things, what do you think you could do about it, and this and that? She's like, well, I could do this and this and this. I said, okay, well, tell him that. She's like, oh, that's so true. That's all I have to do. Tell him in a neutral way how he's making you feel, and what you expect from here. It's that simple.
Again, though, good questioning on your behalf.
Yes, yeah, but that's it's like they know what to do.
Yes.
They know, but they want someone to tell them effectively what to do. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's like, no, it's quite simple. Just this is what you feel.
Yes.
Tell them how you feel. These are the boundaries you need to set them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think like with the content that you've been posting lately, the anonymous questions, it probably just manifests into more and more, right?
It does.
And I love that it's putting out content and it's putting out information that I'm sure people are consuming and going and can relate to it.
It's relatable. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these questions I can relate to myself.
Yeah.
And this is why the advice to me is so powerful, because I'm like, I have been there. Like I have been there. I understand that. I felt it. I have felt it.
Yeah.
I've been on the other end of it. I've been on both sides of a lot of these situations, and I'm like, oh, I know where they go. I know, and like the topic of this, leaving a relationship before it gets to the point where you have wasted years of your life trying to make something work that is just not going to, is so crucial. It really is.
Totally, and that empathy really will come through.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, yeah.
I think also, though, a lot of times people do need to make the mistake on their own.
Oh, they do. And
you got to go through it, right?
Definitely. And I've got a very close friend who's going through, some rocky stuff at the moment. And there's stuff I would love to say to him about, how, the potential outcomes and things here. But it's just, he knows what I know. He knows. They know. But the thing is, if I was to say it to him, it doesn't mean that he's going to act on it. And he can't. Even if I did, it's like, it basically leaves a whole section unexplored. For him to feel better and come out the other side of this, he needs to explore that himself. It needs to happen. I can't do that for him, and nor do I want to do it for him. But it is hard seeing your friends suffer,
Especially when it's not necessary.
No,
especially when that Band-Aid could be ripped off.
Yes, yep.
There'd be a lot of time saved.
Well, when it's a marriage and it's over a decade, it's a big adjustment.
Yeah.
It's a long period of your life. That Band-Aid's firmly stuck there.
Yeah. It's interesting with me and coaching. It's not really technically about relationships at all, but yet it does all integrate in.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
So business is maybe the theme or the title, but relationships are a hugely relevant part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you've got a business and you've got a relationship that's draining and taking a lot of really rocky, then of course that's going to mess up your business.
Massively. Yeah. Your productivity with work could be 30% when it could be much higher.
And like you say, it's because I've been there.
Yeah,
I know what that's like.
Yes,
it's all consuming. Right?
Well, you'd hear someone talk about particular symptoms they're going through and why things aren't working, and you'd ask another question, you'd be like, oh, that points to relationship, and that one does too. And then so how is your relationship? And they go, well, and you go, okay, right, okay, yeah. I thought it might be, yeah. Can you share an experience where you realized you were in a bad or toxic relationship?
How much time have we got? I mean, I laugh, but I spent a lot of my my life in sort of bad relationships. Unfortunately, and that's why I'm so passionate about this topic. Is that I hope that with this new era that we're living in with technology and content, that people younger people especially to be better equipped to identify and know what a toxic relationship looks like. And a lot of these terms even weren't around 5-10 years ago.
No.
So I think that the availability of information is a lot more widespread now.
Yep.
Not to dodge the question though.
That sounds like a question being dodged.
It sounds like a politician answer.
I was about to pull you back on track. So an experience.
When I realized.
Yep.
Yeah. Specific situation. Yeah. I mean, this is hard, right? It's very...
Yeah, it just could be like a moment where you... Because I know for me, I know the rough period of time where I was like, oh, this is, I'm realizing, okay, this isn't just me, because there was a period of time in my relationships where I was like, I'm the problem. And in one of them, I was being told, actually the last two main ones, I was being told I was the problem, non-stop. And anyone who's telling you that you are the problem is not looking at themselves. That's not true. A balanced outlook regardless.
Yeah.
I would never tell someone they are the problem.
No.
As much as I would look at, say, the last couple of relationships I had, and I can identify what their problematic behavior was, they are not the problem. There is not a problem in the relationship. Neither person is defined as the problem. Like, it's to have that outlook makes you really narrow-minded, I think.
I agree.
And for me to realize that that isn't true after being effectively told that for years was when I was like, I'm in a bad relationship. It's the relationship that's bad at this point. And this person has to sort out their behavior. I needed to sort out mine. Mine was horrific. And when I look back, I had no idea what I was doing. But I was doing it anyway, and I was affecting people really negatively. And so for me, that really highlighted to me, yes, I'm in a bad relationship at this point. It's not me and it's not her. It's this.
It's the dynamic between both of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot easier to look back in retrospect. It's a lot easier to identify it after the fact.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to critique what was happening at the time. Like, I look at one relationship I had that ended by her leaving, and at the time I was just gutted. I was like very much in that codependent mindset.
Yeah.
And yet now I'm so grateful. That happened. Very, very grateful.
Yeah.
And so often it's really easy to get caught into that saving mode, right? Being the white knight theory or whatever. It's like the
white knight's the guy that comes in at the right time.
Right.
Effectively.
Wrong character.
No, wrong character. Yeah. The white knight would come in and he's basically capitalizing on another guy.
Right.
Treating a woman badly.
Maybe
and he's like, well, I'm going to treat you better.
Right. Gotcha. Maybe it was the needy knight I'm thinking of. But, I think it's really easy to get into that trap and that, what's the, not introspective, but the other one, like when you're just so caught up in it. You're so in the weeds of the dynamic that you just go into, I guess it's a flood or fight type mode where you're so concerned with saving it and holding on to it, clinging to it.
Yeah, your self-worth is all tied up in the relationship.
It's all integrated in,
Yeah.
So to feel that that's slipping away is not what you want, but when you zoom out and take a step back, it's exactly what you need.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's I compare it to paragliding. So in paragliding, if you get into trouble, say you're trying something outrageous and it doesn't work out and you end up with a big tangle and cravat in your wing where it's all tangled up, you stall your wing. So you pull your brakes down until the wing stalls, and then you're coming down almost like a parachute, but it can reset everything and get it back out, and then you let your brakes up and you fly again, and you're flying. And I feel like stalling is like becoming single and from bad relationships. The bad relationship is represented by the cravat in the paragliding. So the wing gets all tangled and everything. to come out of that, you need to stall the wing.
Yeah.
And that's to be single. You need to be on your own. And you
100%.
you need to give it time for the tangles to come out and everything. You're coming down under the wing, like parachuting down. And then it all clears, and then you're like, right, okay, I can fly again. And so you go hands up.
That's really good.
And then the wing flies again. Bang, you're off. You know. And that's what it is. I mean, any paraglider will know, yes, that is exactly what you do, you know, if you have these problems. And if you can think about relationships in that way, you can say, I do not want to just try and I can't let the wing fly until I've sorted this out effectively. I'm not going to be able to fly safely You can't.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like that? I made that one up.
Oh, it's solid. But I think we've all had friends that are desperately searching for a relationship.
Oh, I've been that guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
Likewise, yeah. And then you can clearly tell they/me are not ready for it.
No, yes.
But you think that that's what you need, and you think that that's going to make your life better and you're going to feel okay. But really that time to like become comfortable with yourself and your own company and enjoy your own life, like it's so important. And
it's not just a case of doing it once and then jumping from relationship to relationship after that. It's actually a case of between every relationship you need it, because you're a new person. Every relationship you have, whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, each time you're with someone, you change and you grow with that person. And then by the time that relationship ends, you've changed so much that you don't know yourself on your own again. And it's very important, I think, that you do take that time. And on your own doesn't mean I'm not talking to anyone for 6 months.
No.
On your own means I'm not going to get into a relationship and I'm not going to date to the point where I'm going to get emotionally invested in someone else. Because it's the moment you get emotionally invested in someone else that everything gets clouded. You literally, if you think about a glass and you've poured orange juice, you've still got orange juice left in there. And what, you're going to fill the rest of it with milk? It doesn't work. That's disgusting.
Oh, good analogy too.
You know what I mean?
Really visual.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the example. I mean, like you had orange juice for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then you've got to wait until that glass is empty before you add that milk, because otherwise it's going to be a wreck.
Well, you got to rinse it out too.
Yeah.
So like the rinse is spending time solo.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. It's got to be put
like
through the dishwasher.
Really got to rinse. Yeah. Sterilize it.
Yeah.
Sanitize that.
Well, that's it. Yeah, because otherwise it's still got crap in it from the juice, from the Coke, from the Sprite, from everything else that you've had. Yeah.
Good.
Bit of sexual health doesn't go astray. Yeah. We'll see how many more analogies we can come up with.
Oof.
That was some good ones.
Two good ones.
Yeah. Okay, so on that same topic, when you've realised that you're in a bad or toxic relationship in the past, what were the initial feelings or thoughts you had when you first recognised it was unhealthy?
I mean, if I'm honest, I've not really been capable of determining that on my own. It's always been a case of going
in retrospect.
Retrospect. Yeah. It was only when my glass was empty, it was through the dishwasher and fully sanitized, like fully chemically. Like
been through the autoclave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was only then that I was able to recognize it.
Right. Yeah.
And actually get back to being myself.
So what were those feelings then when you recognized it in retrospect?
I mean, so much gratitude and so much relief, I guess. I think it's easy to go backwards though too, I think. I think I mean, I can't really speak from too much experience because I've probably repeated a lot of the bad patterns over and over and over again. Yep. I think it's only just recently that I've managed to go through a long enough period of being single, getting my own like mindset correct and going through a good phase that was when I was potentially ready to enter a new relationship.
Yeah, that's right. I guess, but if you were to look back now, you wouldn't repeat those same cycles.
I would like to think not, and I think that's why the advice to be single is so healthy. I think like that's good.
You set yourself new boundaries, don't you? You're like, my life doesn't look like that anymore. This is how I want it to look. And you test yourself with someone new, and you've done that recently, in the last year or so, and it's worked out fantastic.
Like night and day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's so I think like if you're in a mediocre relationship, either try and figure it out or don't, but do one of the two things.
Yeah, that's right. And you can only do so much in that relationship too. Like for you that trying to figure out involves the other person trying to figure it out with you.
Yeah, totally. I was listening to this podcast recently and he was talking about just extreme communication and just going to the nth degree of like dialing into an issue. And not backing down.
No,
Radical honesty.
Yep.
And it's easier said than done.
Yeah, there's I think brutal honesty delivered in the right way, obviously, will get you the result you need.
Yeah,
Like-
maybe not what you want.
No,
but it's
no.
what you need.
Well, you might not. Yeah, there's no. It could be fucking confrontational, for both people. But it's the truth.
It is the truth.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people just push on forward
yeah.
in a pseudo relationship, a relationship that really doesn't have that honesty and truth to the level that it should.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you were able to be completely truthful, that relationship might not exist.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that honesty is crucial. I think
It's a bit like if you're, I don't know, say you're in business and you're not making enough sales, right? It's like, well, what are you doing? Like, let's look at the calendar.
Yeah, that's right.
And
yeah.
like, let's look at your actions and seeing what they look like.
Yeah.
Are you making sales calls? Are you prospecting?
Do you have any KPIs?
Yeah. and don't just expect that these sales are going to come out of nowhere.
I've been there. I've been that guy.
Yeah, I've been that guy too. Yeah, and it's only just recently.
I believe in this product.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
true.
not enough.
No, it's not enough. No, not at all.
Yeah.
So I guess relationships are similar.
They are, definitely.
And that what's that saying that like, the truth sanitizes everything?
Yes.
The truth and honesty.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Like that's what you need. Yeah.
100%. So looking back, were there warning signs that you wish you had noticed earlier?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What were they? What were some of those?
The first one that comes to mind was, I remember we were probably a few months into this one relationship, a long-term relationship, and I remember having this like argument, and it was pretty severe. It was pretty intense, but I remember justifying it or excusing it as, well, hey, like we've just done X, Y, Z. This is natural. Like this is what a relationship looks like.
Yeah.
And it was a really like memorable moment. Like I remember it very specifically. And it was at that point that if future David had have known better, that's when it should have ended.
Right. Yeah.
Right at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess that's the beauty of hindsight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And knowledge.
Yeah. And I think we all feel those, don't we? Like in those moments, there's a feeling. I saw a really good thing earlier today. It was something about like when you feel that gut feeling inside, it's your future self trying to warn you or something like that. It's trying to warn you, and it's like at some point it will make sense to you. You'll look back and you'll go, oh, right. That's what that was.
And that's why, there's people that don't believe in energy and gut feeling and softer type attributes. But, animals trust their gut all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like they rely on instinct.
We're alive because our ancestors trusted their gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that goes way back to the fact that our gut keeps us alive.
Yes.
It really does. That feeling, that kind of like shiver in your spine or whatever, and you're like, hang on a minute, something's wrong. When someone enters a room or there's a pack of dogs walk past or whatever, you're like, hang on a minute, this isn't safe.
Yeah.
And it's the same in relationships. You're like, I can't trust this person, or this person doesn't have my best interests at heart, or that's not something that I should be letting fly, Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you feel like you should say something, you should probably just say it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
And if it's difficult, that's almost an even bigger green light to proceed.
Absolutely. And if it doesn't work out, then you'll learn from it regardless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you say something and you're like, well, okay, that was the wrong thing to say. At least you won't say it again.
That's it.
You're like, okay. But it was the truth at the time.
Win or learn.
Truth. Yeah, that's right. And that's what we do. I think about some of the ridiculous shit I said when I was a teenager, and I would not say it again. And but that's the thing. Like, when you're this age, I can look back and say I've learned from that, and I won't do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's better to say it than to not say it.
Otherwise, you
regret
never know.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So in previous relationships, when things was starting to go badly and you left or looked at leaving, how did you manage any external pressures or opinions when deciding to leave?
I'm probably not very good at listening to external voices, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, but like in yourself, or as in positive or negative voices?
Either.
Both, right.
Yeah. And I think if I were to have paid more attention to others, I probably could have saved myself a bit of time and pain.
Do you think you would in the future? Or is that just,
I'd be very mindful of where it was coming from.
Of course.
And who it was coming from.
Yeah. And at the same time, opinions only carry so much weight to you. which is good. I think ultimately it's much better that we form our own opinion on a situation
Yes.
and take other people's on board,
Yeah.
but they aren't the defining thing that makes us, make a decision one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember in a previous relationship, I had a friend sort of call me out on it, and it was a pretty meaningful, like, metaphorical slap. It was like, what are you doing?
What call you out on the fact that you weren't listening, or
that I'm making the wrong decisions?
Oh,
and
I
that
see.
I'm
Right. Yeah.
probably not serving myself.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
And I did take it on board. I didn't necessarily act immediately on it, but I did find that to be really helpful. And I think that's maybe the sign of a good friend is that, that they will, I guess, push for helping, like even if it is hard, or even if you've maybe heard it before, but like actually forcefully trying to get their point across.
Yes. Yep.
Because otherwise, if it's said just in a casual context, it's easy to brush that off, right?
It is. And it's also, it blends into all the other advice that you get. If someone pulls you aside and they're like, hey man, I've noticed this over a long period and I'm really concerned that you're not doing yourself justice and this is fucking serious.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to keep pushing it, but I need you to know that's where I stand and that, I care about you and that's why I'm saying this. You'd just be like, wow, okay. That's a bit more serious than just, bro, I don't know what you're up to. Why are you doing that? No,
and I guess you've got to have that level of connection or depth of relationship,
Yeah, and I've met people who are willing to talk to me like that off the bat, but whether I take it as heavy or not, or that they're a bit too invested in the friendship too early.
Yeah,
it could be either. And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, that's great, but I don't know you well enough to pull me aside like that.
Yes,
Whereas there are some people who, I would look at them and go, genuinely, yeah, your opinion really does matter because I know you've been there. But you could also take them as opinionated.
That's right.
Like, why are you doing this? What's your motivation? Is it because you want to be the one who knows? Who's in the know or right here? Is this your utility? Are you getting something from this?
True. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is like it's a iceberg of a situation. I think relationships, you only see this top little bit, right?
Oh yeah.
You really don't know, and therefore I don't think many people, if any, are really qualified to.
Definitely. Yep. And I've had that happen even recently, people commenting on my situation and going, oh, what are you doing? I think this, and this. And I'm going, hang on a minute, mate. You've got no fucking idea what has been going on. You've got no idea what that rest of that iceberg looks like and why I've been doing what I'm doing. Yeah. So, it's...
Yeah, I think it goes to show, like, if someone's willing to... I think the most impressive people are the ones that ask good questions and don't, like, throw their opinion onto someone, like
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want to give your opinion when it's asked for, effectively, or when you have a moment.
Yeah, or if you've got context.
Yes. Yeah. That's something I was definitely guilty of, was giving my opinion far too early in situations because I wanted to feel useful. Right. And it wasn't like I wanted to be right. And when you're up against someone who doesn't want to be right, that's hard. My ex was like that. It was very tough because I was trying to get a good result. And for her, I don't think it was the result that she was after. I think it was more, I'm right, and I know how to do this. And that's tough.
Yeah.
But sorry, it's a bit off topic.
It's all on topic though.
Yeah, it's all on topic.
It's all about relationships.
I'm trying to steer us on staying on without going too far off tangent because there's so many ways we could explore this. But I think that advice. What was the initial question? External pressures and opinions when deciding to leave. Yeah.
I think probably potentially more relevant for younger people maybe.
Yes. Yeah. Because when you're older, you're expected to make decisions a bit more based on life experience rather than opinions of others. Opinions of others matter when you're younger because you really are finding yourself in the right way through things.
True.
And those opinions should really be people with life experience. They shouldn't be your peers.
Not the peers. Yeah.
It's like. Unless you are in a group of, and you'd understand this, unless you're in a group of 10 guys who've all got successful businesses, cool. But personally, if I was building a successful business and I was able to get the opinion of someone who was much older than me who had built successful businesses, I would want that. And I think the same goes for relationships. That's why with Flynn, my son, it is crucial to me that every day after school I unpack whatever social things have happened for him at school. And eventually that will lead to relationship stuff, but I want him to be able to come to me and say, Dad, this happened with my girlfriend today. I don't know what to do. And I'm saying, right, cool, let's sit down, let's unpack this. What are your options? What can you control? What can't you control? Where do you want it to go? What has she said to you? You know, these are all things that I never got. No one sat me down and said that.
No.
So I talked to my mates. My mates are like, fuck her, man. Just you know, and that's not productive. And where does it lead you? I was given advice to do certain things. I tried certain things. It didn't fucking work.
No.
Made myself look like an idiot half the time. It's like, and again, I don't think my dad was equipped to give me the advice that I needed.
No.
My mum did. My mum gave me a lot of advice, especially around coping with breakups. Advice I still use now.
Wow.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
But those opinions, that external pressure, if anyone's applying pressure when you're going through a breakup, fuck them.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't want those people in your life. You don't want someone who's going to put pressure on you in a situation where you already feel under pressure.
No. Not at all.
You really, if any pressure at all, it's come on, stand up, let's go, keep going, you've got this. That's the pressure that you want.
Yeah.
It's not someone standing in your way saying, fuck, no, go that way. You know, unless it's really bad. Even someone who's in a brutally toxic relationship, if there's a woman who is in a relationship where it's abusive, say, she keeps going back to the guy, it's often you've got to let them do it. No one can stop them, really. You can put all the roadblocks in place, but if they want to do it, they'll do it.
That's it. Yeah.
They're autonomous at the end of the day. They're a person. So that external pressure needs to be very carefully managed. I think if anyone applies serious pressure on us, when we're dealing with these things, we should cut them loose or back off a bit.
Yeah.
And if you are the one applying pressure, you really need to rethink whether that is the right thing for that person.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder that you don't have to retain all relationships, you know.
No.
Friendships, you can have seasonal relationships.
Yep.
It's okay.
And often when intimate relationships end, so do friendships.
Yeah.
You might realise that actually my friend circle isn't serving me in this situation. I know with me it did.
Yeah.
Fuck, the toxicity wasn't just in my relationship, it was in all of my friendships as well, badly.
Oof.
It took going to prison and coming back out was my reset. That was my stall.
Yeah, it's fairly dramatic. Yeah.
Very dramatic. And it's a real test case of who's there for you.
Mm.
The people I expected to be there for me weren't.
Right.
And then I got letters from people I never expected to hear from, which was so nice.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is often moments like that you find out.
You do, yeah. I welcome them. I look forward to the next ones.
Yeah. It's interesting how you can have different layers of friendships too, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And like I consider you in my inner circle of friends, you know, someone that I would, and I put this down to who would I trust giving my son to if I was dying and they had to get them to safety.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I've got that inner layer of the onion only really has a few people in it.
Wow.
Might be 5 to 10 max. But those people are so different that I don't even know if I could get them all in the same room and they'd get on. You know what I mean? Like they're so different.
That's interesting too, yeah.
They probably would. They would get on. I know they would. But they're all from very different walks of life, you know. And I said this to a friend of mine the other day, is that like, I would go to him if I had specific relationship issues that I was having, because I know that him and I think the same in a lot of ways, and he would be like, oh bro, I know, yes, I do that too, and that we could talk about that. And there's other guys that I'd go to if I was having different issues, you know. And I think it's really important is in these friendships is that you have people that are a diverse range of close friends.
Yeah, totally.
Know?
Yeah, and I think that was why that post you put up the other day about the two different types of friends.
You
or people
like whether you're a group orientated or individual
exactly.
orientated.
And I think when you're individual, you do tend to have more diversity. You've got like a wide range,
and that's you.
Yeah,
you're definitely individual orientated.
100%.
Yeah.
I do not really love groups that much. I find them very uncomfortable.
Well, I think that the people who are very group orientated have a degree of codependency within their friendships. You know. Yeah. And I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying it's very much like this is us, and I don't really want to step outside of this.
Yeah. Oh, you've got a sister, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I was going to say, I wonder if it's an only child thing, but maybe not.
Are you an only child?
Yeah.
Right. I think. Yeah. I'm old. I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my sister was never a group person either. She was very individual orientated.
Yeah.
I think it's probably genetic, maybe dictated by your early experiences in early life. a lot of these people who are group orientated have been friends all the way through primary and high school, especially, high school right through until, and a lot of them didn't go to university. I think they all did.
Yeah, and they'll hang out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just good to bring awareness to these types of topics.
Definitely.
Because, even just seeing that myself, right?
Yep.
40 years old. Like I've seen some shit, but just seeing that and validating it's okay.
I know, and isn't it funny? I was actually quite surprised by the amount of people that responded to that saying, this is me, and I'm like, fuck, I didn't know that many people, because I was feeling that for a long time. And when I wrote about it, I was like, it did really concern me, and that I felt like something was wrong with me. But I think a lot of individual orientated people do feel that way. They feel like something's wrong with them.
Totally. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. When you've had to leave in the past, were there any material or emotional barriers that made leaving difficult?
I've often been the one to get left. So I've often been the one that has either wanted to stay or hasn't left.
I see, right. Yep.
So what that says, I'm not sure.
Well, that's a barrier in itself, isn't it? When do you feel like in that situation you could recognize that the relationship was bad and that you needed to leave?
I think with one, it just, I guess like the two major relationships I've had, one it was a case of recognizing it was bad, but then justifying it with other factors. So other elements of life were intact.
Yep.
And so I justified it as, well, this isn't ideal, but fuck it. It's okay. It's okay-ish. Yeah. I'm not in a, this could be worse.
Yeah.
And then the other one.
When really you weren't thinking this could be way better.
Oh, I know. And that's interesting in itself, right? Like those are two different things. No.
Because you're like, this could be worse. You're like, I can deal with this.
Well, maybe this is normal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm a pretty calculated person, so I just did the maths and I was like, okay, here's X, Y, Z. This is good. This is good. This is good.
Yeah.
Relationship, shit. It could be worse.
But you did the maths based on what you knew so far,
Agreed.
Your times table only went up to 3.
Exactly. I couldn't count very well.
Well, there was a whole new world,
whole new world.
There was everything over 3 you hadn't discovered yet. And so now the way you applied maths to these situations would be like, if say for some reason your relationship now failed, you both left on good terms, and then you were going to the next one.
Yeah.
She would have 100% set the standard for you on what a relationship should be like.
Totally.
Minimum.
Yeah.
And you're like, I won't take anything less than that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're looking at it previously, you were looking at it through that lens of, I don't know if it gets any better than this. Yeah. Maybe this is normal.
It's a really good point. Yeah. And that was actually one of my thoughts going into this current relationship was like, if worst case scenario this ends, hope it doesn't, but if it does, then at least I'll have a way different lens to look through future relationships.
And I think that all makes up that part of you that is like, I will be okay.
Yeah.
That lens is just one tool you have to being okay, is that now you will be more confident that you won't select a relationship or a partner that's going to be bad for you.
Yeah.
Because you've been added to in a positive way. So Em's built something onto you that you can take away forever. Regardless whether you're with her or not, you're single, you're like, she has redefined what a relationship should be for you. And you're like, I am now a better person for it. And for that reason, I will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my last relationship, it wasn't necessarily an instance of, I think it was just a mismatchment, and I learned so much from that. Like that was really healthy to have gone through that.
Yep.
And so I think that coupled with like the time being single, hugely helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all just trying to figure it out. Like, well, hopefully
we are. And I think a lot of people, it comes down to whatever they have now is the best they've had.
True.
Most people generally select something new and are somewhat more selective about who they date after each person. It's just how big is the jump? If you notice if you jump from someone. Say we'll talk about a relationship out of 10, or say a relationship out of 20 in terms of how fulfilling and safe it is. So say you're in your teens and you go for a relationship that's a 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, because in your teens it's not safe.
No.
Everyone is working out what the hell to do and no one knows, and it's so treacherous. Like, it's terrible. So you're a 4 out of 10 in terms of safety. After that, you generally wouldn't pick another 4 out of 10. You'd generally pick someone based who's maybe a 5 or 6, something like that. And you might make these incremental steps. But if you came across a 14, you might be like, whoa, what the fuck is this?
What is this?
And a lot of people walk away from relationships because they're like, this is so unfamiliar. I got no idea what I'm doing here. And they're like, I don't even know what that is. But it would have had the potential to be really safe and fulfilling. When you get to a point when you're in your 30s, for example, and you're able to select safer relationships, you get to a point where you're like, okay, we set the standard. We're like, this is how good it can be now. Wow. And you would never go back. You won't go back to a 3 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 from a 15.
Never, right? No.
But the people end up in them. I'm not saying they don't. It's not like, some people turn it on for the first year and then it turns out they're a sociopath. And you're like, how did I end up with this person? Why have I been stuck at home for 4 days? The door's locked and I got no food. Like, yeah, but it happens. People end up in these horrific situations.
Yeah.
I just think generally we are constantly improving, but we are looking at it through that times table or that lens that we referred to. You don't know what's out there and how much better it can be until you've experienced it. Then that sets the standard. Then you're just like, I'm not going back.
No, that's what fascinates me about people that are in long-term relationships from, say, high school onward, and they've managed to stay together for 20 years.
Oh, I know.
And, as I say, the iceberg, who knows how good it is? You don't really know.
No, and some of them, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they're very happy and they look happy. There's obviously going to be issues around there may be things that they can't resolve and don't know how to but won't face it.
Yeah.
But the thing I'd be really concerned about is if it ends for whatever reason.
True.
How well do they know themselves?
It's a really good point.
Because they will be, even if the relationship works and continues to work and is great, both of them are probably extremely codependent. And I say that as an assumption. Not everyone will be, but it would be. I think it's quite rare to have a relationship that stays together that long, and it would be even more exceptionally rare to be in a relationship for that long and have it completely healthy. Because healthy is really having your own independence, having your own friends, having the ability to understand each other on a completely fair and balanced level. Give each other space, everything. If that works, if you're in that position, that is a unicorn relationship. That is not common, but definitely possible. Just the chances of codependency, I guess, in that situation, I think would be quite high.
Probably, yeah. It's a fascination of mine. I really wonder about relationships in general. We know what the percentages are, if like you were to grade, say, the world's relationships on a 0 to 10 scale.
Very hard to...
is it a parabola or a bell curve or whatever?
It's hard to measure.
Extremely
very hard to measure because it's all subjective. It's like what's healthy to one person may not be to the other.
I guess you just aggregate the data between both of them, right?
Yeah.
So you individually score it, but then combine them.
I need to brush up on my statistics.
Yeah, well, I can't get past 3, so. But you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Because one theory I had when I was a bit tainted and bitter about relationships, I was like, fuck, every relationship's shit. Like, not many people have nailed it. Not many at all. And I don't know if I believe that now, or I'm not sure. I think probably the bell curve is the best way to explain it. You've likely got a big grouping that they're okay.
Yep.
Could be better, could be worse.
Yep.
Then you've got some elite ones that are epic. And then you've got a fairly big additional cohort down the other end that are quite shit.
I think the majority of relationships are in the very average category.
Average, yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I throw codependency around a lot, but I think a lot of people are.
Bad to average?
Yes. Yeah.
3 to 5 out of 10?
I think most relationships are somewhere between 3 to 6 out of 10.
At a guess.
Yeah, at a guess. And I think, even the 3s and the 6s would be quite... Anything under a 3, I don't think you stay together very long. But I think like the 3s and the 6s are the minority. I think really the 5 to 4 to 5 category, I think would be most people.
I think the sad reality is though that a lot of people probably are in 3s and they're staying.
Yeah.
I was in a 3. I was probably in a fucking 2, maybe a 1 even. Yeah. At days.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I get that. I was in a relationship that ranged anywhere between 6 to 3.
Bit like the hot crazy Matrix.
Yeah.
You can disappear and reappear at any.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I forgot about that aspect of it. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to use that.
Oh, I know. I need to bring that out more. I need to repost it, actually. That's a really good thing. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Okay, so can you share how you've navigated moments of doubt or loneliness during these times?
I've been lucky to have really high quality friends, and I mean we've spent a lot of good times together, and
definitely, yeah.
It's been really helpful to have meaningful conversations, and I think that's a really big part of it.
Massive. Yep, I agree.
So I think for me, that single phase, that pulling the chute is both amazing, but it can also be tough to navigate.
Very tough, yeah.
And I think you do have to offset that time, that void that relationship has left with something healthy and meaningful. So whether that's fitness or hobbies or something.
You have to use that time to find yourself.
Yeah.
And you generally use that through testing yourself alone or testing yourself with other people.
Yeah.
But it isn't used to date other people.
No. No, and I don't think you want to mask it or drown it with, say, alcohol or whatever else. Yeah.
I think allowing yourself to sit with the negative emotions too, and being aware of talking, you should talk about them, but also be aware of how much you're talking about them, that you're not meeting up with your friends every day to vent constantly, that it's there is a degree of I'm going to process this, I'm going to be okay, but really still keeping busy and talking to friends and everything.
I think it's also important not to become in a codependent relationship with friends either.
Right? Like, people replace that energy. I've been that friend, I've been the guy doing that, and I've also been on the other end of it where I'm like, man, this person really is coming on so strong now. I preferred them when they were in their relationship. No, I didn't. No, I think I've definitely come across people who were, basically using my time to fill their time that was missing because they didn't have the time to give to their relationship anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I've probably been those two roles as well. I think if you can use as many wholesome type activities to combat this, all the stuff like eating well and saunaing and walking and meditation and beach walks and breathing and
massive
self-care. All that stuff, it's there for a reason.
Absolutely. That's how you build resilience and you learn how to look after yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so advice to others. Based on your experience, what advice would you give someone who's in a toxic or unfulfilling relationship?
I think it would be hard. It would be difficult, and you're going to go through some rocky territory, but whatever you can do or need to do to have that hard disconnect from it. So whether that's spending a week in the bush or like going to a different place or traveling or something, some kind of a separation. Something to get, like, what's that saying about the glass? Like, you can't, the jar, like you can't read the outside of the label from the inside of the jar. I know the one. That type of thing. So whatever you can do to physically extricate yourself from that immediate environment, that is what I would do.
Very important. I agree. I think getting away from whatever the cycles and patterns are for at least a brief period of time. And it's going to be uncomfortable.
It is going to be uncomfortable.
Because your body's looking for that comfort zone. And often there'll be an addiction to the dopamine that's associated with the chaos.
Totally. And well. Do whatever you got to do. Like, disconnect from social media, block them. Like, just have an accountability buddy. Like,
something to be said from not hearing from them.
Absolutely.
It's huge. Like, really, in any form.
And we talked about communication and technology earlier, but you've got to manage that, otherwise it'll manage you. Like,
it's like a drug addiction. You really it is. Like, that person is effectively a drug addiction, and unless you have to distance yourself from them, then you have to manage your own cravings. So you can't have it's worse than a drug addiction because a drug can find you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're addicted to meth, for example, you put it down, it's just where you left it.
That's right. Right.
Whereas you think about a bag of meth that it makes the decision to come find you. That's what a relationship addiction is. And that's why it's so dangerous, is because you can block them, but they could turn up at your front doorstep. And imagine that if you're craving a vape and you're like, no, I'll put it down, I'll throw it in the bin, and the next minute the doorbell rings and it's on your doorstep.
Bag of meth on your door.
Yeah, that's right. Like,
who am I to say no?
That's right. And I have not said no. Not to meth, but to that bad relationship. You know what I mean? Like, I think a relationship, Yeah, a relationship is an addiction, but it's twice the strength.
Massive. Yeah.
It can find you. It is like a heat-seeking missile. You know?
Yeah, and also don't be that heat-seeking missile.
No.
Either.
Yeah, that's right. Don't be
that
that's
person.
Right. Yeah, because again, I'm talking from one perspective.
And I think, however, you need to gamify that
in
your own mind.
That's the managing your cravings part.
Yeah.
Because for me, if I turn up at their doorstep, that I haven't managed my cravings. I've walked away from that drug, but I'm still finding it, and I might be the drug.
You might be the bag of meth.
Yeah, and I have been. I definitely have been. Yeah, I have been.
I think on that though, I think like you've got to be real with yourself that it is going to be hard.
Definitely.
You know, and I think getting yourself into the right state, like the right circle of friends, the right environments, you know, the right gym, the right workplace. Like I think just set yourself up for success so that
that's all going to feel unfamiliar too when you first start doing it. You know, the world's a dark cloud. It's a dark, cloudy place when you're in a breakup.
Yeah,
that's the way I always thought about it. It's like the world's in black and white.
Yeah,
nothing. You're not getting any satisfaction out of anything.
No,
it sucks.
But the key is to not replace it, right?
No, you can't.
Like, do not just jump from one to the other.
Eventually, the clouds go away. The sun comes out.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, the sun does come out, and that's the one thing is everyone when they're going through it feels that they feel like that's what's happening. The sun is not going to come out again, and it fucking does.
Yeah,
honestly.
It always does.
Yeah, it always does. Yeah. And you've just got to decide whether that comes out because you made it come out or was because someone else has.
Yeah.
Because if someone else has, they've got the power to control the weather.
Totally. Yeah, I think like even to the extent of, you know, following the right people online, you know, like follow people that are either single or doing cool shit on their own. Like, you are who you either spend time with or consume their shit. So.
Yes, 100%. Yep, that was a wee nugget.
Do a check on that.
Yeah.
Do an audit on that one.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure.
So how have your experiences with a bad relationship, and I know we did touch on this, but how have your experiences with the bad relationships influenced your approach in new relationships?
Other than perspective, I think that's the ultimate tool or takeaway.
Yeah,
is just knowing the full range of emotions and just knowing myself better. I think application wise, probably you could identify things better. I think just more knowledge, more insight, more awareness. I think it is also a problem of like that trauma though, that PTSD is that, you know, I still face those challenges when like like those codependency urges, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's got to be managed.
Yeah, and I think when you've got years and years of muscle memory, it is a shock to
definitely
be in a healthy relationship.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. In progress again.
Yeah.
Under development.
I think the more time though that you do spend in a healthy relationship, the more positive reinforcement you get.
Absolutely.
And the more awareness of like what it could be like or is like or should be like.
Yes, that's right. That gives you the perspective you need to form the better habits and approach it effectively.
Yeah.
You just have to approach it with an open mind.
Yeah.
You really do. And try not to apply, and we just had this topic on the last episode, was the baggage. Talked about emotional baggage and how it shows up in relationships. It's about not applying as much, trying hard not to treat that person as someone that you know.
Yes.
This is someone completely new.
This is someone new, yeah.
And give yourself time to recognize, is this actually a red flag or a negative trait, or am I seeing this through a negative lens?
Good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any way to actually tell.
No. Well, you'll find out eventually.
Yeah.
You'll know whether that was a bad thing. And again, it might take multiple relationships before you're like, actually, that's a trait in someone that I don't like, and I won't do that again.
Yeah. Very true. But yeah, I think just the more reps that you can get under positive tension, the better.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Take that away.
Love that gym reference.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that's all the questions for that topic. I've just got some final questions for you. So if someone wants to contact you or work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably my website would be the best way to
Okay.
take a look at what I'm up to. I'm
Yep.
trying to wean myself off Instagram
Fair enough. Yeah.
in a way.
I'll put that in the podcast description. So
Yeah,
anyone, if
cool.
they want to get in touch with you, they can do
Yeah.
it through there.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, it's just davidmelse.com.
Cool. No worries. What do you think the world will look like in 5 years?
I think we're going to see some incremental changes with tech. I think
Mhm.
that probably there'll be wider adoption of AI. I think
Yep.
that'll be obviously that's a topical thing at the moment.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to see anything too radical in the next 5 years. Like I don't think there's going to be like human bots
No.
walking around. But
Yeah.
I think in that next 5 years, I think
Yeah.
that's when we're going to start seeing some wild stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
As long as the climate doesn't pack itself.
yeah, I mean, yeah, climate, chemtrails, you name it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
But I think for the most part, though, if we're talking about the next 5 years, I think we're going to see, just in the context of relationships, I think we're going to see, new platforms. I think we're going to see new types of communication.
Definitely.
So it's just going to get even more confusing.
Yeah, I feel like AI is going to really change things big time.
100%.
It already is, but like it'll just get more severe.
Yeah, like with deep fakes. and-
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. They reckon within 5 years we're not going to be able to distinguish between real and fake.
No,
At all.
even
At
now.
all. I know.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, at all. Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
I know.
Crazy time.
Yeah. So if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Man, it would just be trust your gut.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common thing to say, but without context, it doesn't have as much meaning.
No. Yeah. You can apply that to any context effectively, and it is so relevant regardless.
I think it's a Mark Manson quote or a part of the book, The Subtle Art. And he's like, if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
it's
goes
the same
back
with
to
relationships.
yeah,
Like you
and
said, yeah.
it goes back to that whole good being dangerous.
Yes.
Good
Yep.
is not good.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
is shit.
Yep. I agree.
So that would be what I would say. Just really, really try and develop awareness as fast as possible for what great looks like.
Yeah.
And then just not settling,
No.
trusting those instincts.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you've calibrated that compass,
Yeah.
it's nothing but great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Just be way more savage.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Having a positive impact in
Cool.
people's lives.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, I could just keep going on and on. I as I say, I'm really passionate about healthy, positive relationships.
Yep.
Having experienced one at the moment and some less healthy ones in the past.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about this, and I love what you're doing. I love that you're bringing light to this topic. I think that there's been different professionals out there historically, but a lot of them aren't relatable,
No.
especially for younger people.
Yeah.
I don't think, not to name any,
No, of course. Yeah.
but we all know the options out there. I think they don't seem as relatable, but
No.
to put yourself out there on Instagram and to answer questions and to create content that is helpful, that's awesome. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I have a unique perspective because I've been on both sides of that equation. I really have not treated people well previously, but I've also been treated pretty poorly. And I think to be able to articulate that and put it into advice, but also have such a passion like you do for relationships and things like that, this is definitely my calling. I love it.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to, look back on this episode in a year's time and just see what happens.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
If helping people is the mission, then how do you do that at scale, and how do you, how do you do what you do but do it better?
Yeah, that's right. I'm always looking to improve, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we are a year from here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Thanks, man. Well, I've really appreciated having you on the show, and it's been great.
Appreciate you having me, and thanks for chatting.
Thanks, man.